500 years ago, an earthquake nearly destroyed Machu Picchu before it was even finished. A magnitude of 6.5, maybe stronger. The ground shook so violently that stone blocks weighing tons cracked at the corners from slamming into each other. The Inca had a choice: abandon the site or figure out how to build something that could survive the next one. They chose to stay. And in the aftermath of that disaster, they invented construction techniques so advanced that modern seismologists still study them today. The walls everyone photographs are not just beautiful. They are a survival manual written in stone. But here is what nobody tells tourists. The earthquake evidence has been visible this entire time. There are over 140 damage points documented across the three main temples. A visible construction shift appears in every photograph. Pre-earthquake style below, post-earthquake style above. The line between them marks the exact moment disaster struck. Peru's own Geological Institute confirmed it in 2019. Yet tour guides keep telling the same scripted story they have told for decades. The earthquake is just one of 3 verified discoveries hiding in plain sight at the world's most famous archaeological site. The name everyone uses is wrong. The plaza beneath your feet was never a plaza, and the architecture tells a survival story that history books ignore. This is Stellar Insights 42, and these are the secrets of Machu Picchu. Let's start with the disaster, because understanding what happened in 1450 CE changes how you see everything else at this site. Picture the scene. The Peruvian Andes, a mountain ridge nearly 8,000 feet above sea level. Clouds drift through the valleys below like slow rivers of white. The Inca have been building here for years, transforming this remote peak into something unprecedented. Massive polygonal stones, some weighing over 100 tons, have been carved from nearby quarries and dragged into position using nothing but human labor, wooden rollers, and rope. Each block is shaped to fit its neighbors so precisely you can't slide a piece of paper between them. No mortar, no metal tools, just stone against stone, fitted together like a 3-dimensional puzzle. The Temple of the Sun is taking shape, its curved wall designed to catch the first light of the winter solstice. The room of the 3 windows overlooks the main plaza. The Intihuatana stone, the ritual hitching post of the sun, stands ready for ceremonies that will connect earth and sky. This is the greatest construction project of the Inca civilization. A royal estate for the Emperor Pachacuti himself. A sacred site where astronomy, religion, and engineering merge into something the world has never seen before. Workers haul another massive block up the mountain. Priests perform rituals to bless the construction. The city is perhaps halfway complete. Then the ground starts moving. The earthquake that struck Machu Picchu around 1450 CE was at least magnitude 6.5 on the modern scale, possibly stronger. To put that in perspective, a magnitude 6.5 earthquake releases energy equivalent to about 6,000 tons of TNT. The ground acceleration would have thrown people off their feet. The shaking would have lasted anywhere from 15 to 45 seconds. An eternity when you're standing next to walls made of 100-ton stone blocks. The evidence comes from a 2019 study led by researchers from Ingemmet, Peru's Geological, Mining, and Metallurgical Institute. This was not amateur speculation. This was a team combining paleoseismology, archaeoseismology, and active tectonics analysis. The first time, these 3 disciplines had been integrated at this site. They documented the damage with scientific precision. Over 140 distinct impact points across the 3 principal temples alone. Broken corners on stone blocks, the classic forensic signature of seismic shaking. When an earthquake hits a stone structure, the blocks do not just fall. They oscillate. They rhythmically slam into each other as the ground moves back and forth. The corners, being the weakest structural points, crack and shatter first. You can see it in the stones today if you know what to look for. They found displaced blocks that once fit together with millimeter precision, now offset by several centimeters. They found structural cracks following consistent patterns associated with horizontal ground acceleration. The kind of damage that only happens when the Earth itself is trying to shake a building apart. The geology does not lie. These are not cracks from settling over centuries. These are not damage patterns from weathering or jungle growth. This is earthquake damage, frozen in stone, visible to anyone who understands how to read it. This was not gradual settling over centuries. This was not damage from a later earthquake after the site was abandoned. The damage patterns prove that a major seismic event occurred while construction was actively underway. And here is where the Inca response becomes extraordinary. Look at any photograph of Machu Picchu's temples. Study the walls carefully. You will notice something that tourists photograph every day without understanding what they are actually seeing. The lower portions feature massive polygonal stones, irregular shapes interlocking like a three-dimensional puzzle. Some blocks have 12 or more angles, each one cut to fit perfectly against its neighbors. This is pre-earthquake Inca masonry, the style that made their engineering legendary. Now look at the upper portions of those same walls. The stones are different, smaller, more rectangular, less precise fitting, visible gaps that needed smaller wedge stones to fill. The craftsmanship is not worse. It is faster, more practical. Emergency construction. That visible line between the two styles marks the exact moment the earthquake struck. Everything below the line was built before the disaster. Everything above was built after. For decades, archaeologists assumed this was simply a stylistic evolution. Different rulers preferring different aesthetics, different work crews with different techniques. The truth is more dramatic. The Inca looked at their damaged masterpiece and made a decision. They were not going to abandon years of work. They were going to figure out how to build something that could survive the next earthquake. What they invented in the aftermath of disaster would influence construction throughout their entire empire. The post-earthquake techniques were revolutionary. Trapezoidal structures with massive base blocks tapering toward the top. This shape distributes weight more efficiently and resists lateral forces during ground movement. The famous mortarless construction, where stones fit together without any binding material, allows individual blocks to shift slightly during tremors and then settle back into position. The walls essentially dance with the earthquake instead of fighting it. The trapezoidal doorways and windows visible throughout the site are not just aesthetic choices. They are stress distribution systems. The angled sides redirect seismic forces away from structural weak points. But here is the part that sounds almost unbelievable until you see the geological evidence. The part that makes you question everything you thought you knew about ancient decision-making. The Inca built Machu Picchu directly on top of two intersecting earthquake fault lines, on purpose, with full knowledge of what they were doing. Brazilian geologist Rualdo Menegat from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul confirmed it at the 2019 Geological Society of America annual meeting. Using satellite imagery and field measurements, he mapped the fault network beneath and around the site. The fault lines run northeast to southwest and northwest to southeast. They form an X pattern directly beneath the city. The intersection point, the most seismically active spot in the entire region, sits right under the most important ceremonial structures. To modern engineers, this sounds insane. You do not build on fault lines. You avoid them. Every building code in earthquake-prone regions starts with one rule: stay away from known faults. So why would any civilization, especially one sophisticated enough to create the engineering marvels we see at Machu Picchu, deliberately build on the most seismically dangerous location they could find? The answer is water. The geological fissures act as natural conduits. Rainwater and snowmelt from the surrounding peaks do not just flow over the surface. They seep down into the fracture networks. They travel through underground channels carved by millions of years of tectonic activity, and they emerge as springs right where the fault lines intersect. The fault intersection creates a concentrated water source. Reliable, year-round, accessible. In a region where rainfall is seasonal and water access determined whether a settlement survived or failed, this was worth more than gold. The Inca understood the trade-off. They could build somewhere safer and struggle for water, or they could build on the fault intersection, accept the seismic risk, and develop technology to survive it. They chose the water, and they invented earthquake-resistant architecture as a consequence. Carlos Benavente Escobar, the Ingemmet project coordinator, explained the Inca logic perfectly. They wanted the water. They understood the seismic risks, and rather than abandon the location, they developed better building techniques to coexist with earthquakes. As Benavente told researchers, they knew how to coexist with diverse geologic dangers, like earthquakes, landslides, and avalanches. The Inca did not conquer nature. They learned to move with it, and when nature struck back during construction, they adapted instead of retreating. This engineering revolution, born from disaster, went on to influence construction throughout their empire. The earthquake that nearly destroyed Machu Picchu ultimately made Inca architecture stronger. If you are finding this valuable, consider subscribing. We cover verified archaeological discoveries every week, the ones that tourism boards and mainstream documentaries overlook. Now let's talk about the second secret hiding at this site. Because the earthquake isn't the only thing they are not telling you. The place you see in every photograph, the site on postcards, travel brochures, and UNESCO World Heritage listings is not even called Machu Picchu. That name is wrong. It has been wrong for more than 110 years. The evidence proving this sat in archives and in published atlases the whole time, waiting for someone to read it. In 2021, Professor Brian Bauer from the University of Illinois Chicago and Donato Amado Gonzalez from Peru's Ministry of Culture published a peer-reviewed paper that should have rewritten every guidebook on the planet. They did not rely on speculation. They went to the sources, the original documents, records that predated any American or European explorer setting foot on that mountain. They found a Spanish colonial document from 1588. Let that date sink in. 1588 is more than 300 years before the American explorer Hiram Bingham arrived with his Yale expedition. It is more than 4 centuries ago. That document clearly states that indigenous peoples in the Vilcabamba region planned to return to their town called Huayna Picchu. Not Machu Picchu. Huayna Picchu. Then they found an atlas published in 1904. 7 years before Bingham's famous expedition, a published atlas available to anyone who cared to look described the ruins of an Inca town called Huayna Picchu. So the correct name was already in print, already documented, already known to Spanish colonial administrators, to local indigenous populations, and to atlas publishers. The information existed. Bingham either did not find it or did not care. In Quechua, the indigenous language of the Inca, Huayna means young or new. Machu means old. Picchu means mountain peak. Look at any photograph of the ruins. That dramatic rocky peak rising directly behind the city, the one that appears in almost every image, is the geological formation called Huayna Picchu, the young peak. The city was named after that mountain. The Inca built their settlement in its shadow and named it accordingly. Machu Picchu, the old peak, is a different mountain entirely, a taller, more distant peak in the same range. Bingham got confused. Different local guides gave him different names, and he went with the wrong one. Yale published it. National Geographic spread it around the world. For more than a century, nobody corrected the mistake. The researchers put it bluntly. There was an initial misunderstanding of the local place names at the time of Bingham's first visit, and that mistake has been uncritically repeated ever since. When the paper was published, major outlets covered it. NPR, Smithsonian Magazine, Science Daily, and Euronews reported on the findings. The academic community accepted the conclusions, but nothing changed. Peru's tourism authority has not announced any plans to correct the name. UNESCO still lists the site under its incorrect designation. The name Machu Picchu generates too much money to abandon. Professor Bauer told journalists there is really no debate about it. The evidence is clear. But $4 billion in annual tourism revenue apparently outweighs historical accuracy. If this is your first time on Stellar Insights 42, we cover archaeological mysteries and scientific discoveries every week. We bring you the verified facts that mainstream documentaries overlook. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications.